Hey friends, this is the Mrs. Wolfie from our Half Acre Homestead, and today we're going to make an apron out of a dress shirt. Let's get started. Okay, all you're really going to need is a dress shirt, a pair of scissors, a needle and thread, and an iron. But I'm going to cheat and use a sewing machine. And because this dress shirt's white, I've got some fabric paint here that I can personalize it if I wish. This has been kicking around in my pantry for I don't know how long, so we're going to put it to good use. Okay, first off, I recommend that you use an extra large shirt. The bigger the better. And what we're going to do is we're just going to cut from just under the armpit in a straight line right to the back of the collar. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to undo the top two buttons, and we're going to go to the back of the collar, and just below the seam, we're going to cut the back off, leaving about 1/4 of an inch of sewing space. Okay, now where the seams are in the sides, we're going to go and cut down the outside of the seam towards the back of the shirt. Again, leaving about 1/4 inch for sewing. Now don't throw away the back, folks, because we're going to need it for the ties. Now we're going to take our back and fold it back in half, and we're going to cut about, well, wherever the collar was, you're going, where it's folded, you're going to fold it where it is, and you're going to cut starting on the outside of that collar, where the collar was. And at this point, we can just tear it. Now this essentially is going to become our ties. I'm going to cut this off. Now once your center back piece is cut, go ahead and fold it again in half. Make a nick, and give it a good tug so that your scissors, you know you've got a good in half piece. And then again. And these are going to be our apron ties. All right, let's put those aside for now. All right, so let's get to work on our festive gift apron. Let's first work on our ties. So we're going to iron these out. So we're going to take our tie and we're going to fold it in half and we're going to press it. And then we're going to fold these raw edges in about 1/8 of an inch and pin them. Always put your pins perpendicular to the direction that you're going to be sewing. That way the needle can go over the pin and not break your sewing machine needle. So when I have these two ties all folded and pinned, we'll move on. Okay, our ties have been pinned and ironed. Now we're going to work on the apron part of the shirt. We want to make sure that the shirt's going to stay, or the apron is going to stay closed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to put a pin through right above the top closed button, because we're going to sew down either side to make sure that this stays together. Now flip it over and we're going to take some pins, and with our raw edging, we're going to fold this all down and iron it. Okay? Now we're not going to pin down. If you remember, when we cut down the sides, we cut on the outside of the main seam, which means that's actually just going to fold right over. And we're just going to tack that down, but we're going to wait till we have our ties to put on. Now before I do the other side, I want to show you what we're going to do with the collar. And the collar basically is just an extension of where we cut off the sleeves. So we're just going to, that 1/4 inch that we saved underneath the collar, we're just going to pin it down so that we can sew it. And we're going to work our way around the collar, back down the other side by the breast pocket. All right, so when I have that pinned, we'll get sewing. Let's first do our ties. And we're going to start with the bottom seam that is the finished seam. Now you don't have to close up the raw edge because that is where we're going to sew it to the shirt. And we'll be back when I have the other one done. Okay, so now what we're going to do, now that we have our ties done, is we're going to start at one armpit and sew all the way around the back of the collar to the other side. Now I'm going to take these pins out, and then I'm going to run this through one more time just to be on the safe side, and then we'll be back. Okay, now remember the pin that we put in our shirt front. That's where we're going to sew. Now I went ahead and I put a straight stitch line across my zigzag all the way around just to reinforce it. And we are going to start where our shirt is pinned above the button, and we're going to sew, actually try and sew right down the original seam. We're going to go right to the bottom, lift our presser foot, turn it, sew across the bottom, go back into the seam on the other side, and sew up the other side. We're going to go all the way up to the pin, take the pin out, turn our presser foot, and go across, and then backstitch, and voila, this shirt is now an apron front that is not going to open. So far, this is what we have. Okay, now we're going to work our ties on. And we've got our closed ends, we want those on the outside. And we're going to place our apron shirt front right side facing down, which means button side down. And we're going to take the raw edge of our tie, and we are just going to sew it to the bottom of the armpit cut where it comes out at an angle. And we're going to follow the fold. Remember the seam here that we cut on the outside of? We're going to follow that fold all the way down the shirt. Then we're going to take our tie And we're going to fold it back over on itself. There it is there. Fold it back about 1/4 inch. And we're going to double stitch this. Why? Because this is a tie, and it may, it may be tugged on. So we want it to stay in place nice and firmly. So giving your tie a double stitch is just a good idea. And I'm going to go around the other side one more time. And Bob's your uncle, that tie should never come off. All right, I'm going to put the other tie on and trim all these threads, and we'll be back. This is the Mrs. Wolfe from our half-acre homestead with just another holiday gift from the heart.